This is one case that in Costa Rica called the Regenerative Economy Lab. So in the Osa Peninsula in Costa Rica, one of the 5 most biologically diverse ecosystem on Earth, house 2.5% of the world's biodiversity. It's right here in Osa. What's the challenge? This is the sort of business as usual. And this is the rapid growth scenario out in 2030. So we see we have a lot of unsustainable oil palm plantation. And then also we cut down the biological corridor. This is where it houses those rich biodiversity. And this is more of a sustainable development scenario. So we are now in 2020 at a critical juncture. Which path do we want to go? We want to go to this unsustainable but rapid growth, economic growth, or a more sustained development path. I was working, invited by Jenny Mankey, who is the lead in this project, along with many others, to form something called the Regenerative Economy Lab. We work with the local leaders to develop this regenerative blue-green economy and systems financing approach to conservation and sustainable development. So here are some of the members of the community. We created this big spaghetti map. If you guys, I know it's dinner time, so this could be your spaghetti for dinner. So we created this systems map and use it to analyze the system dynamics of the region and identify the root causes and the potential leverage point for collective action. I will walk through it. I just want to give you a visual sense of what a systems map could look like. And this is how you look like in an actual workshop. We could, after we interview the stakeholders, we map out the complexity of the issue, we then host workshops with the stakeholders, print out this large map, using it as a tool for dialogue to see the big elephant together. You use that for stakeholder engagement, validating the map, continue to refine the map, incorporating views, and identify where the leverage point might be. Similarly, working with the local leaders, helping the local leaders thinking about how this could help form regional sustainable strategy. So what would that map look like? I want to spend a little time actually work with the map so you have a sense of how to read a systems map and how can it be used. To start, it's a big map. So here the legend. The red, the green is the vision stock. Red, key barriers. The blue are the potential levers. And if you see variables, red against barrier interventions. In this case, we also start mapping out some of the financing instruments. So all the orange are various financial instruments that we can use to catalyze change. And then the black is various potential outcome. And then you will see the dotted line and solid line. I will explain a little bit more when I go through the map. This is various stakeholder group. And we will have something called the reinforcing positive feedback loop and also the balancing feedback loop in the map, which I will also explain. So to start, here's the story. Oh, it is one of the story that there are also threats of more and more poaching and illegal logging and mining that could cause further damage to the ecosystem. So one alternative, one response to that is the idea of a pure conservation. In the past, a lot of foundations, a lot of both local and also outside foundation grants has been focusing on pure conservation, with the hope of when we have more pure conservation, more conservation enforcement, that will reduce the poaching, illegal logging, and mining. So the dotted line, you read it as a negative causality, meaning the more of the cost, the more of the conservation enforcement, the less of this variable poaching. The opposite could be true. The less of that means you allow it to have more. So it's an opposite direction. The more cost, the less of this. And then the solid line means they are in a positive causality. More poaching leads to more damage, leads to more act of pure conservation. So that's the first intended policy. What's the unintended consequences? The unintended consequences is that when we only have pure conservation, also with limited land use regulation, it creates poverty on the ground for the local who may not have other living means, which triggers further illegal logging, mining, and poaching. If we're not providing enabling condition for alternative livelihood, it could potentially make the problem even worse. So we heard from our interviews, conservation does not work with hunger. Pure conservation does not work with hunger. Right? In addition to that, there are also the threat of mass tourism. So this causes land selling to the resource investors. More mass tourism will help reduce, further damage the ecosystem. It provides job, however, it provides job to usually to the city people from maybe the capital coming over here as opposed to the local people, right? So limited local employment, which further exacerbate the poverty situation. Why are this is attractive? Because as we have more mass tourism, leads to more profit to the potential resource investors, leads to more tax revenue to the government, which enable more permit or to issue to mass tourism. Right? So there's another powerful reinforcing loop that incentivizes this type of tourism and the potential of having marina and international airport. So all this red are in a way mapping out the current reality, how the system is and those various possible threats affecting the system. What are the alternatives? On this side, we'll begin to map out what do people envision the alternative economy be. And this is the idea of the regenerative economy, where starting out with a healthy ecosystem as opposed to damaged system, a healthy ecosystem leads to more sustainable businesses, leads to green blue economy, generate more local employment and sustainable income, leading to thriving community, which leads to more incentive for the local to steward their own ecosystem. Because the ecosystem it help bring the living livelihood to the local. This is a very powerful reinforcing feedback loop. We name it the green economy virtuous cycle loop. Now, it's a wonderful loop in theory. How do you put in practice? There are still a lot of threats or barriers that hinders this. For example, on the ecosystem side, we have the threat of monocultural, the unsustainable oil palm, rice, field, and cattle leads to monocultural threat, logging, cutting down the biological corridor, and fertilizer pollution. All this have negative impact on the ecosystem. On the community side, all the reds are the barriers, right? Access to healthcare, community security, quality of education. Some of it through public financing by improving the public services could help. And you see, right, the poverty also help exacerbate that, right, leading to robberies, drug trafficking, etc. Leads to that. Some of the interventions that has been either has been doing or been proposed in the area of ecosystem stewardship. We have land conservation, public-private land, protected land, environmental education, conservation projects, empowerment. And many of these are through grants because there is not really a business opportunity. So through grants to the nonprofits help bring those awareness. This part are more related to how do we build those regenerative enterprise, sustainable enterprise that enabling the blue-green economy. For example, if we have a more healthy ecosystem, more biodiversity, the medicinal plant businesses that we could harvest from the richness of the biodiversity. Healthy ocean leads to sustainable fishery and aquaculture. Forest, sustainable forest, and sustainable agriculture. All these could help increase the opportunity of sustainable businesses. And then, of course, ecotourism, many of you are working on to help bring sustainable tourism into the region, enjoying the nature while helping conserving it. Now, for all this to happen, the enabling condition is that we need to have a robust micro enterprise development. Idea sounds good, but are people able to actually do it? Do they have the capacity to run the businesses, to know the financial models and all that, right? So the micro enterprise development also critical condition. Further out, this part is about the sustainable oil palm. So engaging with the oil palm industry, sustainable agriculture policy, looking for those buyers and certification to help incentivize the development of sustainable oil palm, and on a financial instrument, ESG screening, so on and so forth. Yeah, this part about various enabling conditions that help build the micro enterprise development, access to seed capital, incubators, market access, and infrastructure, and so on and so forth, right? And on the loan side, you have impact investing, micro loan screening, and so on and so forth as your financial instruments. And here you have ecotourism training, probably through grants, entrepreneurship training, and so on and so forth. Okay, we're almost there. Now, so far we have not talked about government. Government, of course, play a critical role. So having an effective governance, critical, because it enables, for example, the sustainable municipal zoning law, land use reform, land title and settlement, and so on and so forth. Right? So how do we engage also the people are empowered to help shift the mindset from pure conservation to green economy or regenerative economy? Demonstrating the results that also help them shift. This is a path to go. Especially some of the countries are much more lagging. How to help those countries think in this way is critical. And last but not least, the current reality is the system are still fragmented and with a lot of short-term thinking. So shifting from this fragmented silo thinking to a more of a whole system collective action this is kind of where our work is trying to support and enable is through systems mapping and dialogue to help build the systems understanding so we can create this holistic view, a shared roadmap. They help reduce the silo thinking and help enable the stakeholders to form collective action on all these blue variables, particularly those ones that are potentially high leverage points. This is the full map at this stage. All these are various stakeholder group in the system: tourism, government, investors, consumers, agriculture, nature, academia, NGO, community, resort, NGO founders, right? So this is an example of how to bring that elephant together. We all sit in part of it. The change agents working hard on each part, either on tourism, on agriculture, but we are all interconnected. And how do we then find the underlying root cause of the problem and the high leverage points so that you can help us thrive collectively, right? That's what this process and this methodology is trying to help. I think someone
nice to see me there.
Exactly.
That's great that you have a picture.
Yes, I'm so glad you're here. Like, wow, right?
Nice, Joe.
Yes. Good times. So good, yes. Yeah. So this is Danielle working with us as a key stakeholder in the system. We were doing a little mapping exercise using the map to see where we are acting on in the system. This is beginning to create a collective awareness. Who is working on what and how might we collaborate instead of reinventing the wheel? Also, who else is not working on certain parts that's critical that we need to pay attention to, right? So this is kind of taking stock of what's happening in the system. Layering various granting and investable projects in the system. So you can use this for various ways once you created a map like this. And there is also an online version using Kumu software that you can use and share across the internet. That big spaghetti map, big and complex, so we typically will create a simplified version, like an elevator pitch. Here it goes. So this I already explained, right? The healthy economy leads to the sustainable enterprise, green economy, local employment, thriving community leads to more local stewardship. Effective governance provides in the environmental and stewardship and education, sustainable agriculture and fishery policies, zoning, infrastructure, seed capital, good governance. As we more of that, this will help shift, create a collective action mindset shift towards a green economy, and also provide public services to the thriving community. The red ones are some of the current challenges that we are facing, right? So this is that creative tension, illegal poaching, inadequate enforcement, deforestation, poaching, indigenous cultural erosion, so on and so forth, right? The red are the current reality. The blue are our vision, and holding that, right? We find a leverage point, we act on it, and don't let it slip too quickly. If you let the vision slip too quickly, or if we ignore the current reality too quickly, no tension, no energy, no force, no movement. So creating a map like this bring our collective awareness and help us to hold it, help each other to hold ourselves accountable to our shared vision. And this map, we also layer on top of it the idea of assistance financing. How do we financing for impact using a systemic approach? So you using various financial instruments. In this case, you may have microloans, angel VC for the micro enterprise, This you have using grants, crowdfunding, ESG funds, carbon credits, social impact bonds, and public financing, right? So various financial instruments catalyzing on different leverage points using different instruments. If there's commercial return, using commercial instrument, sub-commercial grants, creating a total portfolio to catalyze change on the ground. And this also is about convening the investors, grantors, people who have resources to see the system together along with the change agent on the ground. Typically, it's like this kind of relationship, right? Begging for money or asking for that. That's not a healthy relationship, because who has the knowledge? The local has the knowledge, and the local is experienced the change on the ground, not the people who have resources. So how do we bring that in us like this, that we all in the bed in the system? If the founder's way is very silo, oh, I only pick my pet project, you are creating unintended consequences that you are not realizing, and the one suffers out, one's on the ground. So how do we bring that so equal and see what's really happening and how my intended policy may create unintended consequences, and having that dialogue, space for dialogue, is critical.